All right, you just gotta switch it. Okay.
It's recording.
So everybody introduce themselves.
I guess I'll start. Yeah, my name is Anthony Hale. I'm a social work major. And, yeah, student life.
Cam Bruner, and I'm a special education major.
Dan Sanders, and I'm a secondary education major.
Sean DeRoche, and I'm a nursing major.
Julia Gatlis, and I'm undecided. Sarah Kitzner, I'm a nursing major.
Alrighty.
So let's talk about the current situation.
Well, one of the craziest facts I got is during 2013, we got mortgage debt at $39 billion, and then student loan debts at $31 billion, and car loans at $21 billion. So, and credit cards at $20 billion. So, student loans are the second biggest debt that we have right now, and only by a little bit. And I mean, it's more expensive than most people's car loans and their credit card.
And my house too.
Yeah, and most
Your
people's
houses,
houses too.
yeah.
The houses has only got it by $8 billion, which in the grand scheme of things isn't that much. So that's crazy. And I got one more fact just to follow up with that. From 2007 to 2012, just off student loans, the government made $66 billion in profit from students alone. Like, where's all that money going? And why does it cost that much to better yourself? This is my real question. Why does the government need that much money for us to get a legit job, to get the training we need? I think it's ridiculous.
I think that, well, I got the statistic about how nearly 1 out of every 10 graduates accumulate more than $40,000 in debt. And this has a negative effect on the student borrowers and the economy.
Absolutely.
Going back to what you said about like student loan being like the second greatest debt, it's like now when everyone gets out of debt or say that like you're getting out of debt, you're paying off your car, you're paying off your house, the student loan is the last thing that they say they'll still keep around as like to continue to pay on it. Like when they get out of debt, like they get out of debt for everything except for their student loan.
Yeah.
And then that affects people getting married because they still have all that money tied up, and that's why people get married later, they start families later, they don't buy a house because they have all that money tied up in their education, and they can't find a job from that education to support the payments they have on it.
And then that brings up the question, does it really work to begin? But if you go to college, you make more money, but you have to spend more money because you're making more.
And that's kind of what I had was one of the current situations was like college being too high, and it's always going to continue to rise. It's not going. I mean, it's not going to get any cheaper. The funds are getting lower and harder to qualify for student loans, and then college loans are as much as a house payment, like we said before.
You talked about, like, to get good paying jobs, you have to go to college, and I put that as a problem because college is so expensive, and students that can't afford it can't go to college, and they can't get well paying jobs. And then the problem for people that go to get their higher education, they have endless amounts of debt. That's one of the problems for the nation, I think.
Absolutely.
That's
Going
what I
back
had.
to what you said earlier, I got a fact that in 2005, the average student loan debt was $17,233. But by 2012, it climbed to $27,253. That's a 58 increase.
Yeah, I have a
58.
chart here that says that actually.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly, yeah, 58% increase in, what is that, 5 years or 7 years? That's insane. Like, why is it gone up? That's what I want to know. What's changed to make education more expensive?
One point that I had was I went on websites projectstudentdebt.org, and for students here at Spalding, the average debt that we accumulate, well, the average debt that graduates of 2013 had was $23,092.
At least it's less than 40,000.
Yeah.
It's still a big number. It's not a
Plus-
number that sits easy.
I mean, who's to say you're guaranteed a $100,000 job when you graduate? Anyway?
Not me,
Right.
especially
Right.
where start out like 30, 40.
That's what I'm saying.
And then what
A year.
about, even after you graduate with your master's or whatever degree you get, it takes you allowed to get your job. Like, you have to have 2 years in your field before you actually start working, and that's not good at all. As far as paying off your student loan debt and things like that, because you don't have the money to do it.
Did y'all know Spalding's going up 3.1%?
Yeah,
That's
like,
tuition.
So I read something where they said that they were going to actually like keep it, or it wasn't going to move. Something about like how they were going to try not to raise it, or I had something.
I wish it was one of those schools like where when you go and you start, you're like locked into tuition, so whatever
Yeah.
grade you start at, it stays that way until you
Yeah.
graduate.
I have a solution for that problem, and it's performance-based metrics. On college.usatoday.com is where I found this. But performance-based metrics for schools created by the federal government that ties tuition costs to certain metrics. And then, for example, college graduation rate. So if 40% of students do not graduate, then the university will not be allowed to raise tuition. So like when you
That's
come
good.
in,
That's good.
when you come in and start, like if you don't finish your 4 years and graduate, the university shouldn't be able to raise tuition. It's kind of like what we're talking about.
I agree with that. But that might not really be Spalding's problem, because Spalding has a high graduation rate.
They have a low amount of students, than
Yeah.
like Louisville or UK,
Yeah.
but they just drop out whenever.
Yeah. But it will help the national issue. It will help
Yeah. This wouldn't help us right now.
Yeah.
Good effect on outstanding balances. Apparently, all students in the U.S. right now, it's $1.16 trillion in outstanding student loan balances. So not only are the student loans like high, but they're not being paid because they're so high. Like,
Right.
how can people pay it off? Like,
You can't default on them anymore.
Yeah, no.
Like,
Yeah.
if
It's
you
the
declare
only-
bankruptcy,
yeah.
you still, like, they're still gonna
It's-
come knocking on your door. and
yeah, it's the
everything you
only
have.
debt that when you declare bankruptcy
Right.
stands, and like they won't forgive you for it. So
That's crazy.
yeah, once you're like bankrupt, that means like you can't pay anything.
You
Like
can't
you're
do anything.
yeah, you're already screwed, and they don't even recognize that.
It says that in-state students is 18,943. That's for public schools, and then private was 42,419.
So like
And
tuition
that
rate-
doesn't include items that aren't directly billed by the school, such as transportation, books, and laundry.
Yeah, and it's hurting our generation. More people our
Right,
age
that's
aren't
true.
buying homes because we can't afford it because we
So
have
living
so
with
much
your
debt.
parents, yeah.
And that hurts the economy if we're not buying houses. If we're not buying houses, what else are we not gonna buy then? Like, you can't afford a house, how are you gonna afford anything else? Like,
Where are you gonna live is the question, but.
exactly, it's gonna,
That's why some people still live with their parents and then they don't get married
Yeah.
because they
This is
can't
true.
support someone.
yeah, no, it's hurting our economy bad.
We aren't producing as many kids and it's, like it's.
I mean, it can mess up your credit too, though. You're
Yeah,
not
if
paying
you're so
it.
far back, and you
That's
keep
what I thought.
missing payments.
Oh, yeah, and without credit, you can't get anything in this country.
I what about the
Everything's
people who don't even start, paying stuff to even build their credit because they still live with their parents? If they don't have the money, they won't ever be able to invest in themselves so that they can buy a house.
You can't even buy a car without, you gotta get your parents who has better credit than you to even
Right.
put the payment in their name.
So that affects our parents because, people our age are going to depend on their parents even more.
And if you don't make those payments, your parents' credit goes down and screws them over.
But our parents have student loans too. That's
Yeah.
the big issue, is that this is something that affects everybody.
Multiple generations.
Yes. Well, while I was researching, I realized that in the U.S., some of our government funding helps people with tuition assistance, but we don't get as much because the government funds public schooling. So I think that if we find a way to fund public schooling less, then we will have more money to help pay tuition, like college tuition.
I hit on that too about entrance exams and then substantial assistance from the government. I talked about like if you're not a good test taker, it's not fair to you. Like for example, I'm not a good test
I'm not
taker
either.
at all.
At all.
And then for the government assistance, like say your parents make a good amount of money, the government's not going to help you go to college. Like for me, my parents are divorced. My mom doesn't make much money. My dad does, so I use my mom's income, which is helpful for me. But if they were together, I wouldn't get the government assistance to come
I mean,
here.
I don't get it, but my parents aren't. I mean, my mom was a teacher. My dad worked in the post office, but I don't really get any assistance off of it.
Yeah.
You know?
I just don't think it's fair to everyone. Like not everyone gets the government assistance or the test taking. Like if you're not a good test taker, you're not getting the assistance.
Right. You either have to be
be smart.
You have like a standard 4.0 all
Yeah.
through your whole.
Yeah.
I feel like whenever I looked at, because when I came to Spalding, like I kind of had a full ride, like I have one, but then there was this girl in my class, and she was like, well, I didn't get any money to go to college, and it surprised me because it's just amazing that one person can go to college for free, but then the next person can go to college and have several years of debt. So we have to figure out how to solve this issue.
Another thing is like we're in charge of paying our debt the second we get out of school, like it hits
Yeah.
us.
There's no grace period.
Yeah, in comparison, in Britain, after they graduate, the colleges don't ask for the money until they actually get a good job in their field. And like a lot of people that graduate college in the U.S. aren't even getting jobs in their field. So you're going and you're getting all this debt and then expect to pay it off, but then you can't even get the job that you need to pay it off. So if we looked at other countries, a lot of factors I got here about other countries, their system just seems a lot more fair and a lot more just and like more understanding. Ours is like, well, like I said earlier, the amount of money the government's making off student loans alone is ridiculous. Like, there's no reason for that. Why do they need that much money?
And then, I mean, obviously with a system like that, though, especially I think in America, people would take a greater advantage to a system like that. There would obviously be like some really huge checks and balances put into place. But you could easily do that, like have documentation of employment after you like graduate and do that. And then once you reach a certain field and a certain income, be able to start making those like minimum payments on your principal and do that. But I think that's a really good idea.
I
Yeah.
think it's crazy the interest rates. Like, okay, you have to pay back $40,000, but then it's 6% like every year or
That
something.
climbs quick.
It's
Especially if you don't have a job right away.
Yeah.
And you're waiting like a year or two to even get that job. That's 12% interest right there. Like, how much is that?
That really backs up.
Do the math, but there's no point. It's ridiculous.
And then it leads to the question, where are our tax dollars going to? Because when you do get paid, they take out your taxes, so why can't they take out some of your student loan taxes? Like, why can't it just be a mandatory set number for maybe everybody?
Exactly. Going back to Britain, when people do start paying, once they do find their jobs, there's a set thing. If you make a certain amount of money, I think it's like 50-something thousand, as long as you make more than that, then they start taking out little pieces of your debt just through your wages. But if you don't make enough, like for example, with me, when I like go out in my field, I'm probably not gonna make 50,000 starting out. So they wouldn't even ask for the money back until I got that, which I just feel like even Britain has got it way better than we do as far as student loans go.
Back to your point about the interest rate, I just looked up at Forbes.com, it said our current fixed rate is at 3.86% for our interest, and then it's gonna bump up 0.8% to 4.66.
That's insane.
And then missing one payment on that
Yeah.
increases it
Yeah, we could do the
like
math on it.
tenfold.
It'll just keep going up and up and up.
Yeah, I don't even know if I want to do the math on that. It's scary.
More money is getting away from your pocket.
Yeah, everyone's pocket, our generation's pocket.
Yeah.
It's not just me and you, it's like,
So everybody's gonna be poor.
Yeah,
Us.
it's affecting
Yeah.
more people than just
Yeah.
us not getting jobs.
Or with
It
the
affects
degree.
the entire
So
economy.
we'll be.
I think it affects like, my dad now is going back to school for his job to get more money, I guess, but or his job's paying for it right now, but say he fails a class or something, he has to pay for it out of pocket. So I mean, he's having to pay out of his pocket at an older age, and
But
like
isn't it
older
like
people are
if
still
you
gonna
go
have
back to
get
school?
debt.
I mean, because if you're in school, you're not really paying them. It's just when you get out. Because I actually work with a nurse. She was in her 40s, and she was like, "I'm just gonna have to go back to school because they keep calling me about these loans." She's like, "So if I go back to school, then you know."
Oh,
But that's kind of like,
Oh
That's what it costs.
Just keep talking.
okay, well, in Austria, they have a similar system to Britain. It's actually pretty close. Or I said Austria, I meant Australia, sorry. But yeah, if you don't make $51, they don't even charge you for your student loan. I mean, it's still outstanding, but it's not gonna affect you. If you don't make 51 or more, they're not gonna ask you for money. They're not gonna take any money from your check. Like, it's an understanding that if you can pay it, you can. And then
Yeah.
I got a fact that in comparison from us to Great Britain again, 98% of student loans are paid, and then, yeah, and then over 13% of the student loans in the U.S. during the first 3 years aren't even paid at all, because we can't afford it. And that's going back to my earlier point. If 98% of student loans are being paid because of the system that they have set up, then the $1.16 trillion that the U.S. is missing out on would probably end up getting paid, or at least most of it. And then they could still make their money without screwing everybody over if there's a system set in place that was like Australia's or Britain. It would work for not only us and us getting cheaper student loans, but it would work for the government because they make money because it'd be easier for people to pay.
So we do need a new system. I think we should